The Simpsons is one of the best shows of all time. It made up a big chunk of my childhood and I still watch the classic episodes every now and again. I agree with a lot of people that the show has pretty much gone downhill from what I've seen. Although I haven't really watched a full season of the later years of the show in a long time, so maybe it's got better. But the only new episodes of the show I watch every year are the Treehouse of Horror episodes. I just love the Treehouse of Horror segments because it gives the writers a chance to do whatever they want, from straight up, parodying a movie to killing the cast without having to worry about continuity. So recently I rewatched all 25 of the Treehouse of Horror episodes. The 26th one comes out in a few days as of when I'm recording this. So I decided to put together a top 15 list of my favorite Treehouse of Horror segments. It was originally going to be top 10, but I had to bump it up to 15 because there were so many good ones. And even then I still have a few honorable mentions like Homer Cubed, The Thing and I, Send in the Clones, The Raven, Bart Simpson's Dracula, and Ho Mega Man. So here are my top 15 favorite Treehouse of Horror segments. Number 15, Oh the Places You'll Do. It's pretty much just a parody of The Cat in the Hat and a few other Dr. Zeus stories. This is a relatively recent one. It was from Treehouse of Horror 24, which aired 2 years ago. And some people criticize it because Dr. Zeus is the last thing you'd think of in relation to Halloween or horror. But as a big fan of Dr. Zeus, I think this was really well executed. The art style is great, and the entire segment rhymes while also containing great jokes. My favorite parts are the jabs at unfaithful Dr. Zeus adaptations, like the Lorax car commercial and Mike Myers being in Cat in the Hat. So if you're a Dr. Zeus fan, I suggest you check this out, you'll probably like it. Number 14, King Homer. It's a parody of the 1933 King Kong with Homer as King Kong. The use of black and white in this segment is a nice touch, and I also really like the design of Homer as King Kong. It's one of the more quotable episodes too, with the whole Candy Apple Island joke and Smithers' comment about women and semen not mixing. I also think it was a nice twist not having to end on a parody of the whole, was Beauty that killed the beast thing with the King Kong dying. And instead it just plays out a wedding between a giant ape and a woman. Number 13, A Clockwork Yellow. It's a parody of A Clockwork Orange with Moe as Alex, and towards the end it just makes fun of a bunch of other different Stanley Kubrick movies. This is another recent one, and it came from last year's Treehouse of Horror. I found a forum earlier where a bunch of different people listed this segment in their top 10 least favorite segments of the show. But unless you've never seen A Clockwork Orange, I really don't get how you can hate this one. I mean, having Moe as Alex was a surprisingly great choice. And Clockwork Orange is such a bleak and graphic movie with rape and stuff like that you really wouldn't think it would work in the format of an animated comedy. But they really did a great job of subverting a lot of the messed up moments from the movie. There's a great joke where Moe and the gang are talking about how they like to partake in a bit of the old in-out. And you see them looking at a woman and she's looking all scared. And then it just cuts to them jumping in and out of the doors of the Quickie Mart. The references to other Kubrick movies near the end are also really done well. I don't think I've ever seen a Barry Lyndon reference in any other movie or show, so, they get points for that at the least. Number 12, Fly vs. Fly. Homer gets a teleporter, Bart goes through it at the same time a fly does, and he ends up with the body of a fly. Meanwhile, there's also a creature with a fly's head and Bart's body, and Bart needs to get his old body back. That fly-headed Bart creature thing is really disgusting looking. It's a really great character design, and it makes it even funnier that Homer and Marge instantly accept him. You also really feel Bart's desperation when he's trying to warn his family, but they don't even notice because he's just a little fly. But some of the best gags are before the whole fly thing is even introduced, with just Homer and the teleporter. Like him trying to grab a beer through it and getting cat medicine instead. And when he positions it up against the toilet so he can pee through it when he's downstairs, that's really funny. Number 11, Terror at 5.5 feet. While on the school bus, Bart sees a gremlin that's trying to destroy the side of the bus, but nobody believes him. This is one of the few that actually really builds tension well throughout the segment. That's partially down to the great premise where... That's partially down to the great premise, which is a parody of the Twilight Zone episode Terror at 20,000 feet. Like with Fly vs. Fly, you actually do feel Bart struggle that nobody's listening to him. It's one of the creepiest segments as well, and probably has one of the darkest endings. Number 10, Terror of Tiny Toon. Bart and Lisa accidentally get sucked into the TV and end up on the Itchy and Scratchy show, and then Itchy and Scratchy start trying to kill them. The concept of Bart and Lisa going inside a cartoon sounds kinda strange because The Simpsons is obviously already a cartoon. But The Simpsons is a show that's, for the most part, is relatively grounded in reality. So having them in this, Looney Tune-esque world, creates a lot of fun opportunities. Also, Itchy and Scratchy translate really well into Treehouse of Horror, because Itchy and Scratchy is probably the most violent element of the non-Treehouse of Horror episodes of the show. So making them the villains of this segment works really well too. Number 9, Clown Without Pity. Homer buys Bart a Krusty the Clown doll that proceeds to torment and try to kill Homer. This is another really memorable one with a lot of classic moments. You have that whole Frogurt exchange, which is one of the funniest Simpson moments ever. And the revelation that the doll is trying to kill Homer because somebody set the switch on his back to evil is just so dumb that it's genius. Number 8, The Devil and Homer Simpson. Homer sells his soul for a donut to the devil, who turns out it's Flanders. They have a court case to decide whether his soul actually belongs to the devil, but in the meantime Homer goes to hell for a day. What's not to love about this one? Flanders as the devil is a brilliant idea. The resolution of the episode as to how Marge saves the day is actually really clever and kinda touching. Lionel Hutz, who is one of my favourite side characters, has some great moments. But what we all remember for this one is the scene where Homer is in hell being force-fed donuts, but instead of being tortured, he enjoys it. It's a classic. Number 7, Citizen Kang. Kang and Kodos come down to Earth just before a presidential election and they pretend to be Bill Clinton and Bob Dole. Honestly, I wasn't a big fan of this segment for years. It's only relatively recently that I've come to appreciate the brilliance of it. And most of the enjoyment comes from the political satire that was lost on me when I was a kid. It's pretty much just an allegory for the problem with elections and politics. You know, the pandering to the opinions of the public. The fact that often you're just voting for the lesser of two evils. And how third-party votes are essentially useless. But it's actually still funny too, especially the ending. Number 6, Nightmare Cafeteria. This is the one where the teachers start eating the school kids. There's a lot of solid jokes in this one, especially when Skinner is trying to, hide what's going on. And he says, "You might even say that we ate Uter, and he's in our stomachs right now." Wait, scratch that. But this segment mainly sticks in my mind as being the most messed up and disturbing segment they've ever done. Aside from the basic premise involving adults cannibalizing children, which is pretty messed up to begin with, you also have the visuals of the teachers getting fatter and the classrooms getting emptier. You got the lunch lady with blood of children on her apron. There's a giant blender that Milhouse falls into and gets sliced by. And then you have the ending, which nobody seems to talk about, where Bart wakes up and this weird gas seeps into the room and the Simpson family get ripped inside out and they start to sing a song and they're dragging blood all over the room. What the hell is that about? This segment is pretty much the only one I would truly consider scary. When I was a kid, I actually really remember being terrified by it. But I really have to give credit to them for living up to the horror part of Treehouse of Horror. Number 5, The Island of Dr Hibbert. The Simpson family go to an island where Dr Hibbert has been transforming people into animals. This one is mainly so high for the novelty of seeing all the different characters as animals. And a lot of them are just really fitting choices. Like Disco Shrew, Skinner's mother as a kangaroo and Skinner in the pouch, and Chief Wiggum as a pig, and I'm not even sure if that's because he's fat or because he's a cop or, both. I've seen a few different lists of favourite segments include a segment called I've Grown a Costume on Your Face, which also does the whole let's transform all the characters into funny things. But this episode does that a lot better in my opinion. And outside of that, there are a lot of great moments too, like Homer having sex with the cat version of Marge and not noticing. And Homer riding the cow version of Flanders through the jungle. It's a really overlooked segment in my opinion. Number 4, Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace. Groundskeeper Willie here is essentially a parody of Freddy Krueger, and he's haunting the dreams of all the Springfield kids. Groundskeeper Willie as Freddy Krueger is always going to be comedic gold, and this is one of the funniest segments ever. It's also kind of a dark segment too, with Martin's corpse being wheeled into the kindergarten class. But my favourite little part of it though has to be the flashback where you learn why Willie has been doing this. And within the space of 2 minutes, there's 5 amazing jokes. But my favourite is when Willie bursts in and he's on fire, but he has to wait for Milhouse's dad to finish talking, and then Willie just sits down while he's burning to death. Number 3, Doll Z for Zombies. This is the first segment I remember really liking when I was a kid. It's also one of the most quotable segments with some of the best jokes. But it also serves as a nice time capsule to a time before we were oversaturated by zombie movies and shows and video games. Also the very ending joke where they're at least we're not turned into zombies. And it just shows them mindlessly watching TV. It's a joke that's actually really relevant today with people who are just glued to their iPhones. Number 2, The Shining. It's the classic parody of The Shining where Homer goes crazy. What can you say about this one? Most people have it as their number 1 favourite segment and it's pretty close for me. The whole no TV, no beer makes Homer go something something is one of the greatest Simpson moments ever. And not only is this segment one of the best movie parodies the Simpsons have ever done, it's also one of the best executed movie parodies of all time. But it still stands up on its own as being hilarious too. And number 1, Time and Punishment. Homer somehow builds a toaster that sends him back in time, and he messes with the past and he ends up in a bunch of weird, strange, alternate universes. This is my favorite Treehouse of Horror segment pretty much because it's the funniest and the most creative segment. There are so many amazing moments crammed into 7 minutes, and every time I watch it I appreciate new little moments. Like the part when Homer asks something and then there's a big sloth thing behind him that shrugs. I love all the different ways that Homer messes with the past. You know, at first he's trying to be careful and then he just doesn't care and goes crazy. You also have the universe where Flanders is this big brother figure, and the tragic raining donut scene. But my favourite part is the opening scene where Homer is just relaxing and realizes his hand is stuck in a toaster somehow. This whole part makes me smile every time I watch it. Mainly for the part where you see Homer clearly takes off the toaster and throws it away. And he sits back down and he relaxes and then he sees that his hand is stuck in the toaster again. That makes no sense, but it's so ridiculous that it's the funniest thing ever to me. So those were my favourite Treehouse of Horror segments. Hopefully they continue to make good ones. This year there's going to be one with Homer as Godzilla, which has the potential to be amazing. And maybe sometime I'll do a list of the worst Treehouse of Horror segments, because there are definitely some bad ones. So, thanks for watching.